to start, we'll cast our minds back to this morning's chat about AgTech. We had a few questions for Anthony and James. And James, I think I'm going to handball them to you. One of the biggest barriers to AgTech adoption that I can see is connectivity, or that lack thereof, in Australia. Do you have any comment on this? And yeah, I guess how we can work around that until we get the connectivity?
Look, that is a very good question. And I will say that the MTGs, or mobile telematic gateway that we use, it is on the it's on the 4G. It's gone dead. Hello.
It's connectivity for you.
Sorry, this is running off the Telstra network. Yeah, sorry, low blow. But it is the 4G. The 4G modems are exceptional. So they have a high gain antenna that we use in Australia that sits inside the roof. You would be surprised at the level of connectivity you can get, where you could make a text, but perhaps not a call, but the MTG can either source the Telstra, Vodafone or Optus network, as we spoke about. It can actually source that enough to do what we call, to get the data up to the cloud, but also it enables you to do, and for us from a support point of view, what we call a remote display access. So I can dial into any of our clients' displays on any machine, and usually it's because they're having issues in terms of navigating around a screen, or they've got a bit emotional because they can't work out something. So instead of me driving an hour and a half out to a farm, I often do it on my phone as I'm travelling, because unfortunately I live and breathe this, so I know the architecture of the screen, so I can style in and go, no, you need to press that and you need to press this. But I guess back to that connectivity piece is that, yes, we've got the option of going Starlink, but the current hardware that we've got now is exceptional in terms of being able to leverage what is out there currently, simply because it is working on that 4G network, and I guess they will transition those to the 5G, but that doesn't really impact a lot of our ag clients, because 5G, as you know, doesn't go very far from that tower given the frequency that it is. So it is very good, and to date, really at day's end, I haven't seen a lot of issues per se with regards to getting that data up to the cloud. And that even comes down to downloading software. So that hardware that we've got using the MTG can download software, not dissimilar to your electric telephone. It will just download, and they're fairly solid software loads, around about that 800 to 900 meg. It will download it pretty successfully within 20 to 30 minutes, depending on that signal strength. So they do a very, very good job with the current network. And we are noticing that Optus is now getting a number of towers, so it'll switch between Telstra and Optus depending on whatever the signal strength is. If you are in an area that is challenged with connectivity and Telstra is the only one, you can lock it into just that. It will just remain on that because that is the only tower, or it will just swap to whatever is the strongest strength. They do.
Sounds like my dad and Netflix.
Yeah.
Mum's like, your dad wants to talk to you, and he'll be like, Netflix? And I'm like, oh, we've got this, Dad. Just breathe. Turn it on.
What's that?
Thank you. Please do pipe up if you have any questions from the floor. I can run the mic while I'm at it. We have a couple of Australian feed-based monitor questions for you. How far back does the data go, and do trees and forage shrubs influence the data?
Thank you. So if you remember back to the graph I put up, it goes back to 2017. Nearly everybody is on that 2017 run, although there are some places that we didn't start processing until the start of 2018. So the data goes back in the AFM to there. In terms of trees and shrubs, everyone asks us that question. So trees and shrubs are excluded from that total biomass reading. And remember that I said the total biomass is everything above the ground to about a 2 metre height. We pick up also the difference in that shrubs and trees are not rapidly changing compared to grasses. So we've got a 5-day passover. So we're quickly starting to eliminate particularly say those shrubs and those woody species that are under 2 metres in height. So unless density and canopy cover are very solid, we'll be able to give you a reading. So a lot of people worry about trees. Trees are excluded, and if you look up and you can see the sky, then the satellite can see the ground, and the ground can then be measured, or what's covering the ground can be measured, so we can exclude those trees out. But we can't see the ground because of canopy, then you won't get a reading there. Yes, there might be feet under it. Think about that as the change down the back of the couch. You didn't expect it to be there, you can use it, but we're not including it in our valid amount of data.
Thank you. We've got lots of carbon questions on here. Can my carbon project change size if I want to include or remove areas?
That's a really common question, and the answer is no. So once you decide on your project area, that is the project area for 25 years. If you decide within that project area to drop a carbon estimation area, you need to get special approval, and you may still need to report on that area. So no, make good decisions early on.
I'll back that up straight away with another project question. What is the average percentage of the income generated that you guys take?
People used to be really weird about this question, like in the industry, and there's different. So our service fee is 28% of the credits generated after all of the mandatory discounts occur. So that's our service fee. In the industry, we're probably one of the highest, but we cover all of the costs of the project. So it's like a success fee. If there's no credits to be generated at any of those issuances, well, we don't get paid. So that's why we do only back winners. So we screen really hard. But there's other models where some providers will have you pay for all of the soil sampling and all of the audits and the chemistry, and you pay for the mapping, and maybe they don't share any of the credits, or you'll just share a smaller amount. But yeah, ours is 28%, and then 72% is for the proponent to use however they like.
So does that include that when they work with you, when you have to undergo like the change management, if it's fencing or if it's all the millirants in some way, is that on the proponent or is that?
Yeah. So in our case, so we cover the cost of everything except for the practice change itself.
Yeah.
So if that's around using a product or changing grazing management, or like you said, like fence wire, that's the same thing on the electric fences on that fence, I guess. So yeah, no, we don't cover that, and we've spoken about that a lot. But there has to be buy-in from the grower as well, and it has to make a good production sense, because I can like science the shit out of everything in project design. The one thing I can't do is implement the practice and maintain the practice. So I've got to make sure that the grower that we're partnering with does that and does that well, and that's their kind of skin in the game as well.
Cool. I've got another soils one somewhere here that I'm going to pass to you, Chi. Let me find it. Lost it. It was about, why is it not standard to measure carbon to 100 centimetres? Is there more variability at 30 centimetres than 100 centimetres?
I think it's a simple answer, yes. There's more variability at 0 to 30 than beyond that depth, so you get more stable carbon. For some projects that I've worked on, you get that from 40 centimetres, depending on where you are, some 60, some 50. But on average, 40 to 45 centimetres, you begin to stabilize that. You don't increase that much in rate as you go deeper.
It's an interesting one here. Claire, I think you might be our best bet to answer this. I've heard that rules around Scope 3 emissions will negatively impact Australian ag. Do you think that we as farmers should be getting across and pushing back on these?
Sweet. Are you in New South Wales farmers?
It's a good question. I think the groups that I go to visit and talk and do my workshops, if I ask the question, who knows there's scopes 1, 2 and 3, has anybody heard scope 1, 2 and 3? I think the level of knowledge of what 1, 2 and 3 are in the community is low, and then ask the question, if you're doing your numbers and you're looking at your scopes 1, 2 and 3, how does that look for your farm? And then having a discussion where those scope 3 fits. I think it's not just Australia, it's also global in terms of scope 3s as well. And for the reasons I mentioned earlier on, in terms of it's not just farm, it's the whole supply chain, then knowing those numbers allows you to have that discussion.
Can I just add a comment? Okay, I made a comment there about New South Wales farmers, just as a representative of the peak councils that are around. Unfortunately, most of the peak councils are not well informed on all of these things. For example, I know of nobody that's ever been invited to by a peak council to talk about the sort of things that you've heard here today, and some of the soil science things that go with it, and this whole concept of scope 3s and 2s and 1s. So a lot of, there's things that are, I get information things from Cattle Australia, and I just shake my head and I think, how on earth did they arrive at that conclusion? Because it's just not true. So you need to be very, very careful of some of the things that are being said around the industry, things that are being said by peak councils, and there's a lot of agro-politics in all of this. So in terms of the scope 3 world, the problem seems to be things like if I'm a fertiliser manufacturer, I send you a product that comes out with a measure of carbon in it, in its bulker bag, if you like, and I take that onto my farm and I bring it in as a scope 3. It's got nothing to do with the fact that it was a scope 3 for the previous manufacturer. They imported it in as a raw product, and then they manufactured it, sold it with a little carbon handbag, and I bought it and I put it in. That's not transferring. And that's what happens all the time. So you need to be very careful about some of these things and some of the things that are being promoted.
Justin, one's come through for you. Do you see conservation agreements having an impact on land value? Is it generally positive or negative?
Sure, that's a great question. And the answer is it depends. And there's also many things that you can do when you set up an agreement to ensure that you don't have a particularly negative impact on land value. So it's definitely an important consideration. So as I say, one of the credit values sort of recognise that for, say, a grassy woodland community where you can run a productive grazing enterprise, they're higher than they are for, dry sclerophyll forest community where you're going to struggle to run a productive agricultural enterprise. So I guess that recognition in the change of land use should be recognised in the value of the credits themselves. But obviously, if you change what you can do on a parcel of land, that's going to have an impact on the perceived value in the market. For a stewardship agreement where a well-funded total fund deposit that produces a reasonable, generates a reasonable income for that management action, that becomes your alternative land use, and I guess that's the value proposition that you would put on a stewardship agreement. Well, I buy this to do the biodiversity management. This is the income that I can generate from that property. that will make a big difference in terms of what's the change in the land value pre and post an agreement. But it certainly can, and I think for higher value agricultural land where you've got lots of options, then you would expect, and you take those options away, you would expect that the land value is going to decline. I think for a well-funded agreement in, a backblock dry forest community, you're probably going to increase land value because you can generate an income from there that you might have struggled to do otherwise. So it's very site and dependent, I think, what's the land value implications.
Thank you. Got questions rolling in now. Ian, how do you see carbon values affecting stock agents having to provide information on clients' stock offered for sale to buyers at sale yards?
How did you know I was talking to the president of Alpha last week?
Do you want the mic?
Oh, okay. Yeah, look, I had a reason to ring the president of the chief executive officer of ALPA, the Australian Livestock and Property Agents Association. So when we finished the bit that he wanted to talk to me about, I hit him up and said, look, how's it going with you guys? How are you starting to react to this need that you might be the middleman in another transaction that we have to follow through? And he said, yeah, it's interesting. That came up at our last meeting and it's on the agenda for our next one, which is, I think, early next month. So everyone's talking about it and nobody knows quite how it's all going to work. But rest assured, look, these guys are talking to, the processors are talking to these people and saying, how's this going to work for us? And everyone's saying, how do we make it all work? Do we attach it to an NDD? Do we put it on? Do we put it on your you provide our PIC and then you register your net farm emissions figure with us so that we know where we're going, and that was a figure for the last financial year, and then that we'll put a date on that has to be re-registered with us on a 12 monthly basis. It might be it's due every August or something like that. All of those things have yet to be sorted out. But rest assured, those of you that deal direct with companies, don't be frightened to ring up the livestock managers that you talk to book when you book your stock in, and talk to them directly, because they will tell you.
That was my question, Ian.
Yep.
Working for a stock and station agent. I just know that stock like that they source a lot of their stock from sale yards.
Yeah.
And in terms of being able to make an informed choice about the carbon value of that
Yep.
input, even if you have it on an NBD or associated PIC, you don't know that at the time of buying. Because even though they might announce whose stock it is, they're obviously not going to, unless they ever start announcing what the value, the carbon value of that stock is, you're not going to know till after you buy it. And that is a large percentage of their input is
It may be part of the information that you put up on the screen.
well, I mean, in Ford's obviously there is no screen.
Yep.
So the agents just run through the pins and it goes at.
Yeah, and little things like that are going to be issues that in your case, Forbes might have to address, because otherwise people might say, well, I'd rather send my stock to somewhere else where that buyer information is more readily available. But maybe it's also available on the pre-sale printout that all the buyers can get hold of. I think they're all the decisions that your agents association need to be talking about, and that's where ALPA, I think, needs to have some sort of standardised system. But
They're going to be really by the time they deal with the EIDs.
yeah, look, it's an issue, but I mean, common sense would tell you that I think that there's a way through it. And it's just a bit of smart computing programming, and things can be made a lot easier. But we've got to make sure that whatever's done here is the same thing as is done at Gloucester or pick a sale yard centre anywhere. Yep.
Amazing, thanks for that. Question 2, we've got any more from the floor? No? Suze, one for you again. Was the 12-ton company using a soil fungus additive?
No, they weren't, and they're not that company. They were literally, it says, using a secret source, though. That's quote unquote from them.
The secret
Bit
sauce.
suspicious.
I love it, don't you? Oh, dear.
Claire, is
That's
there
a
a specific course that you guys offer or that you know of that will step me through exactly how to do my carbon account?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, there's a couple of I put a couple of those tools up on the the board earlier. There are a number of tools. We like to think that they work through the greenhouse gas framework. So there's some standards there. Certainly, as we've mentioned, the AI platform, the AAP, certainly the GAF tools, the MLA. So there's a number of different tools out there, but what we say is if you're using those tools, think of which tool, which version. Those things I went through in the talk as well. We use with our carbon farm plans the AI platform to help you understand your emissions and your sequestration potential on your farm and those potential pathways or options that you can take as well. Because once you get the number, the question is, what do I do with it? What does it mean to me? And so you're almost baselining against yourself over a number of years. What does that number mean? But what can I do to look at that to reduce emissions or change emissions or necessarily think about the sequestration side of things? What does that mean to my business and my business goals as well? So it's something that you can get your number, but the next step is what does that mean for my business and my business goals?
Okay.
But shameless plug,
That's what I was
we're
about to do,
in
don't you?
central tablelands at LLS, and we are, like, because Claire is one person trying to run around teaching people about carbon accounting. We are running, and Liz is leading, running some workshops for landholders just to step them through a few of the calculators. So sign up to Central West, Central Tablelands, wherever is convenient for you. Newsletters, LLS newsletters, and you'll see them coming up. Like by the end of this financial year, there'll be just small intimate groups stepping people through it because we understand
That's the way to do it.
there's a lot of information. And that point you made about what is next, it's what do you do with that number is part of what we want to be able to support people with as well. With the government sitting.
So we're doing that as well in small groups. I think you also remember that, so some of those change practices, some of those best practice things that we talked about in the past are still very much forefront for farmers these days. So that might be, do I change my lambing date or my calving date? What does that look like? Not only to my emissions or emissions intensity, but also what does that mean economically for my business as well? So what does that mean for my bottom line? If I do that, if I get those weaners to wait 3 months earlier, what does that mean for the economics of my farm, the productivity, the profitability of my farm? So they're things which are business specific as well. And then thinking about what's coming in research in the next 3 to 5 years as well, and what that might mean for your business. So they're things that are a really good discussion, and a small group can have those discussions, but those numbers are often not just 1 year, but over a period of time. So you can see what the biggest drivers might be on your farm and why they were there. So it might be that you might be rebuilding after a drought, or you might put lime out. So understanding those things which drive those emissions numbers is also very important as well.
I think the concept of the groups is the way to go. And so it's a matter of, is that what groups of what producers would like to join?
Will we not need to know this information within the next year if the gig businesses are going to have to report your group 3 or
I don't.
scope 3?
Yep.
In that we're the suppliers to those big organisations.
That's where you,
we have a year to get our emissions numbers.
no, just ask them now. What
No,
they're not.
we're providing them. Though.
Yes, I know, but they're.
So you don't have to know the calculator.
You're only going to have 1 year's data,
That's correct.
right? So that's a limitation.
Isn't it always 1 year's data?
Well, over time you're going to build up a range for your farm. Now, it depends on what the companies ask for. Do they want your most current, or are they happy to take a rolling average?
But when I sell my grain to GrainCorp or my cattle to JP,
Yep.
they're not going to need that 1 year's data. They don't need a range. They need to know what my per head or per tonne.
That's going to be a personal choice for them. Over time, they might require you to lodge it each year with them. Because it's done in arrears, like in August you're going to calculate this financial year, for example.
Right.
So you have that, and they might say, that's fine, you just have to send us another one each year. No, we don't want that. If you've got 3 years data, just average it and we'll live with that.
But that wouldn't it be like for the cattle I'm selling them? So you're saying I can give them, I can sell last year, but I can give them the previous year's emissions?
Yeah, that's all. Everything that this system does has to be calculated in arrears.
So yes, but it's not linked to the cattle.
That's you can't do it any other way.
I think that you
So-
should sort of start like the advice that we are sort of giving people is start, and if you do a June calculator or a January, whatever, it doesn't matter, and then you start communicating with your supply chain and just saying this is what I've got, and if they don't need it, if it's not mandatory for you to enter into that supply chain just for them to know that number, you will then just be able to start tracking it. And the power's in knowing the number. Like if you've got 2 or 3 years of data, but you haven't been required to give it to anyone yet, you can start saying what, was it a drought that impacted that, or was it restocking that impacted that, or whatever it might be, the changes in the number. And it just gives you another management tool as well. Like if I'm turning off cattle, 30 days early, what impact is that having? And can that, so you can improve it potentially, but you don't know until you kind of start. So I don't know what they will ask you specifically, because banks will want something different again if you start going down that path. But it's just a matter of starting and having something to go on. Regardless, don't get caught up in should I do January to December or financial year or anything. I think don't get caught up in that.
I just don't see the point, it's a political point, if why we're having to produce emissions data if it's not being linked to what we're selling.
Yeah.
It's just as an accountant, I can
Well-
use my numbers
Yeah.
really.
With the big
But don't forget, everyone in Australia is playing off the same level playing field.
Well, not if you're not matching your data.
No. What it's saying is that, how do you explain it?
I understand what you're telling me.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
So what you're saying is, you say you're going to sell some 20-month-old steers, for example.
Even if I'm just selling 20 head, I know that we've all got to do our bases, so
Yeah.
you can get that data pretty.
Yeah, that's pretty easy.
You
Yeah.
can get that data to match those 20 head.
Yeah.
Because I have to give it for GST, for
Yeah.
example. But you're saying to me that I don't actually have to match it to you. We're not required to match it. I can just give you emissions data.
Yeah, what you're going to work out for your beef enterprise, for example, is kilograms of CO2 equivalents per kilogram of live weight.
Yeah.
And that might come out at being 10 or 5 or whatever.
That can be last year's information.
Yeah, but that's the only information you've calculated. So that's the information that you give to the supplying company, to the buyer. That's all we can do. And that's the way everyone's got to do it. It mightn't be, I know what you're saying, that it mightn't necessarily relate to those animals
Yes, but
that are there.
I'm saying that the information is there, that the government's not going to require it. I'm saying you have
No,
to
it's not the government that requires it. It's the information, the standard that all the companies will have to work to. So I know what you're saying, that it doesn't necessarily, I'm reading that what you're saying is it doesn't match the animals
Yeah.
or their production time.
Yeah, but we have to have all that other data for other reasons, is what I'm telling you. Because you have to have your financial data. Currently, I know you think it's in previously, but you have to have it for your bases.
Yeah, you do, but the only part of the BAS that you're interested in, well, no, you're not interested in your BAS except for what, BAS just gives you
Well, you have to know your fuel, you have to,
yeah, that's right, but it's only the litres that you need to know. It's not the money. Money's got nothing to do with it. It's just,
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
no, it does matter. It's about weight.
I
So
can
it's numbers of head, weight, litres, and it's nothing to do with money.
And it's something that you're probably going to only have
Yeah, every 12 months. You just update it. Yeah.
I can give an example for kind of grain and oilseeds where it is linked to the product directly that you are selling. So for this crop, between this time and this time, what were the emissions to produce that crop? It's not an average, you can't pick a number from years ago, it's for that crop. So that's with some of our clients and in that supply chain that expect it for exactly what you're saying, for that specific product. What were the emissions like associated with producing per kilo of grain or meat in that example? And certainly we've got clients where their expectation is it's tied to that product, and then once that is, it's like an offset, once that is kind of cancelled out, then you can't count it again, right? That was those emissions that we've spoken about for that crop is gone now, and now we're talking about the next thing. So yeah, and maybe it's different in different industries, but certainly the clients that we work with, it's with that product that they are buying from you, because your scope 1s are their scope 3s, and they want to know very tightly what they're buying off you and what that number is associated with that discrete product.
So it's probably better for a grain crop situation than it is for a livestock enterprise, where where you're doing it over 1.5 years or something. You know? But don't just go with it. Go with it. Enjoy it. But again, is that coming from the companies who are buying? Yeah. So that's the top-down driver. The companies are saying this is what we want.
Great. Well, we've got negative 2 minutes left, so if there's no more questions from the floor, I just wanted to ask you all briefly in one sentence what your key takeaway message is. And I'm starting at your end, Chief.
Thank you. I guess I would go back to the main topic for today, which was asking a question around how can your farm be more efficient with or without measuring carbon. So I guess going home today, did you get the answer for yourself? Are you thinking about opportunities to, make your farm more efficient? Are you going to look down towards the line of AgTech optimization, or looking at carbon options or biodiversity opportunities? So for mine is an overview, and I would like you to have that question at the back of your mind as you leave today. So thank you.
I probably should be saying that you should all be signing up to the AFM, but I know you've all gone and done that, and then you'll upgrade the pasture key, which is excellent, keep you in a job. What I would say, and this is something to think about, we talked about data a lot today, there's an expression I often think about, and it's data should drive innovation. So the data that you capture, whether it's for carbon, whether it's for livestock production or grain or something like that, think about it as to how do you use it to do what you do better. And that's probably the first instance, taking out the low-hanging fruit, the things that are pulling you back. So we're going to get fixed in some of these esoteric measures that at the moment we're still grappling with. But for a lot of you, there's still room to improve that's going to make your system work better and make your system more efficient, and probably help you in terms of being a more carbon reduced operation or whatever it is that you want to achieve. But data should drive innovation. Don't just collect data for the sake of collecting data, because that wastes everybody's time and wastes your time. So my takeaway would be, think about the data you collect and what is the innovation that you're trying to drive. And you'll know that once you start to see that data come in.
Yeah, very simply, learn to use one of the calculators that are appropriate to your enterprises. Download them, sit down, tear your hair out, and you'll find that it'll all fall into place. So be confident with it.
I'd say ditto, but I also will say that on Farm Carbon Advice, if you want to know a bit more about those scopes, the global influences, if you want a bit more about soil carbon, some of the research that's happening around genetics in terms of low methane sheep and beef, this is a plug for those webinars. Sign up to our newsletter, go and explore some of the materials that we have on our website as well. Worth having a look at. The webinars, don't have to go to the webinar, it's there for you to have a look at your own pace and your own time. So there's some opportunities there to explore some of the things that we really didn't get into the nitty gritty today. And yeah, if you're interested, please sign up.
Thanks. I guess from my perspective, if you've got 200 hectares plus of native vegetation that you think you might be interested in managing for biodiversity, then my contact details are up on the board, and feel free to send me an email or give me a call. I'll be happy to talk you through what our program looks like and whether it might make sense for you.
I concur with what Al said. You leverage technology to collect accurate data. There are a lot of machines out there that come with that technology already. Make sure that you use it to collect that accurate data. But equally too, involve, as Anthony said, involve your staff. Make sure that they know that you are data driven and their role within collecting that data.
Registered soil carbon projects are a really good opportunity for some farm businesses, and put the effort into working out whether or not you are one of those farm businesses so that you don't miss out.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for your time, and thank you all for your questions. I'm going to pass it back to Chi to wrap today up.
Thank you so much for giving us your time today. So many of them traveled really far to be here. We do appreciate your time and your expertise in this area, so thank you for being here. Thank you all for creating that time to be here. I just learned in a previous meeting that an average farmer has 2.5 days in a year to spend in workshops like this. So we're pretty lucky that you gave us almost a day out of that. So thank you. Hopefully you are leaving here today with some bit of an information or some contact or someone you consider a person that you can reach out to for that information. And as I said earlier from the beginning, I'm the Natural Capital Advisor for Central West. I'm based here in Double. Feel free to reach out, call, email for questions around this. And I'll be organizing events as well in this area very soon. We're hoping to have some training around this in the next month. It should be on our website right now. So please just reach out. I'll be happy to support you as well. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Brad and Larissa, for your support today. I do appreciate it, and then I wish you all safe travels as you go back. Thanks.